Hey, welcome back to Compounding Quietly. Most investors spend years fixated on a big number, $1 million, 2 million. But the milestone that actually changes how you invest isn't that far away. It is the first $100 a month in dividend income. That sounds almost embarrassingly small, but the size is not the point. What changes when that income becomes real is the point. Let's actually look at this clearly. Building toward $100 a month in dividend income is not just a math problem. It is a patience problem, and most early investors confuse the two. Here is where the math starts. At a 4% dividend yield, you need roughly $30,000 invested to generate $100 a month. At a 5% yield, that drops to about $24,000. At 3%, you are looking at closer to $40,000. Those are real numbers for a portfolio still in its early phase, and the gap between where you are and where those numbers require you to be is where most investors lose momentum. Picture this. You open your account after 3 months of investing. You have $5,000. Your monthly dividend income is $17. You reinvest it. You add $500 more the next month. You check again. The number barely moved. That feeling, that sense, that nothing is happening is one of the most common reasons people change strategies. Not because the strategy stopped working, because the feedback loop is too slow for the human brain to find satisfying. Most investors are conditioned by price feedback. Prices move every day. The numbers are large and the changes are visible. Dividend income works differently. It does not announce itself through price movement. It accumulates quietly, month after month, in the background. And that quietness is misread as stagnation. It is not stagnation. It is the nature of the strategy. What that $17 actually is the first output of a machine you built. The machine is running. The question is whether you are willing to keep feeding it. The compounding math does not change based on how it feels. It runs the same in a good month and a difficult one. What changes is whether you are still in the system to receive it. The investors who reach $100 a month almost always kept going when the income was still in single digits. They kept going because they understood something important. The early phase is not supposed to feel like progress. It is supposed to feel like foundation. Let's look at how the math develops over time. Contributing $500 monthly into a 4% yield fund with reinvestment puts the milestone near year 5 or 6. That timeline shifts based on a few variables: how much you contribute each month, whether the fund's yield holds or drifts, and whether you stay committed to reinvestment consistently. Reinvestment is the variable most early investors dismiss as marginal. It is not marginal. In year 2, your reinvested dividends might purchase 3 or 4 additional shares. By year 6, those compounded reinvestments could be generating as much income as 1 or 2 months of fresh contributions. The compounding does not feel real in the early years. It becomes visible in the later ones. Most people quit before it becomes visible. Here is one way to think about what that gap represents. 2 investors build similar portfolios over 3 years. They make similar contributions. They hold similar funds. From year 4 onward, the investor who stays begins to accelerate, not because they added more, because their reinvested dividends have reached a scale where they make a visible difference each month. The investor who left will never see that acceleration. They left before the curve bent. The type of fund you use matters, but in a specific way that is often misunderstood. The most important variable is not the highest yield available today. It is yield stability through different market conditions. A fund that pays a high yield but cuts its distribution in a downturn does more damage than the number suggests. It does not just reduce your monthly income. It resets your psychology. You start questioning the structure. You recalculate your timeline and find it is extended by a year or more. You begin looking for alternatives, and you leave the compounding curve at exactly the moment you should stay on it. A fund with a more moderate yield that has grown its distribution year over year does something different. Each year, without adding more capital, your income grows slightly. That is the mechanical advantage of dividend growth. Investing over income chasing. It is not designed to maximize income today. It is designed to extend the income floor over time. Coming back to the original question, what does it actually take to reach $100 a month? The answer is not a specific fund. It is a specific discipline, a structure with stable, growing distributions. Monthly contributions that do not pause when the market feels uncertain. Reinvestment through the years when the numbers feel too small to matter. And a consistent way of measuring progress in income terms, not price. There is a moment that arrives for most investors building this way. It usually shows up somewhere between year 2 and year 4. The portfolio is growing, but slowly. The monthly income is still in double digits. And something louder, faster, with a better recent return, starts to seem more rational. This is the critical moment. Not because the strategy is failing, but because staying requires something that outperforms feeling. The investors who reach $100 a month are not the ones who found the best fund. They are the ones who stayed through that moment without changing the structure. The first $100 a month will not transform your financial life on its own, but it will transform the way you think about your portfolio. Before that milestone, most investors measure progress by account value. They watch prices. They compare returns to an index. After they cross it, the reference point changes. The question is no longer, what is my portfolio worth today? The question is, what is my portfolio paying me? That shift from price thinking to income thinking is the actual objective of the early phase. Once you measure in income terms, the market's daily volatility becomes less relevant to your decisions. A down market is not a loss if your income is stable. It is an opportunity to buy more of a system that is already paying you. Think about what that means practically. When the market drops, your first question is no longer whether to sell. It is whether your income position is holding. If it is, you are stable. If it is not, you have useful information. Either way, the framework gives you something to act on. Most investors who reach this milestone describe the same shift afterward. They did not become better at reading the market. They became better at ignoring the parts that do not affect their income. That clarity is not accidental. It is the result of having built around income from the start. The path to $100 a month is not a complicated path. A structure that holds through different market conditions. Regular contributions that do not pause when uncertainty rises. Reinvestment through the years when the results feel too small to see. And a standard for measuring progress that does not change when the market does. That is the criteria. Build around. The market will keep moving. The criteria don't. $100 a month is not the destination. It is proof that the system works. Build from there. Compounding quietly. Slow, steady wealth building. If this helped, subscribe and leave a like. Everything here is for informational purposes only. All final decisions and responsibilities remain with you. Thanks for spending time with Compounding Quietly today.